Welcome to Football with Cheese. As we continue the offseason recaps for all 32 teams, we're going to close out the West with the Arizona Cardinals. I'm not sure what division we do next. We'll see. Someone in the AFC. If you have not subscribed, please do so now and hit the bell for notifications so you never miss one of my videos. The Arizona Cardinals were about league average last year. They went 8-9, finished third place in the NFC West. They started 2-4. But they had a lot of injuries, and their schedule was brutal to start the season. They should be 2-4. Their losses were to Buffalo, Detroit, Washington, and Green Bay. They should lose to those teams. Those were all playoff teams. So that made sense. Then their schedule got real easy. They beat the Chargers. Well, actually the Chargers were a playoff team, but they beat the Chargers, and then the Dolphins, Bears, and Jets. And they should be the Dolphins, Bears, and Jets because they're better than those teams. So all of a sudden they're 6-4. They were in first place. It looked like they may win the division. However, they lost to Seattle, Minnesota, and Seattle again, and were 6-7. And where they lost any chance of winning the division was week 15 and 16. They went to Carolina and lost in overtime. That's a game they absolutely had to win. And then they were at the Rams next week and only scored 9 points. So they lost those games. So Rams and Seahawks tied for the division, 2 games better than the Cardinals. But they were in it for most of the season. A lot of people will probably forget that when they do predictions this fall. You're going to see that I'm going to be higher on the Cardinals probably than most. Their offense, they have some studs. Defense, not so much, but we'll get into that in a second. In free agency, they had to do something about their defensive line. It was awful last year. They signed Josh Sweat from the Eagles. He had 2 sacks in the Super Bowl. He's a good player. He's not an elite player. I don't think he's ever had more than 8 sacks, but he is a definite upgrade for what they had. They also signed Dalvin Tomlinson, defensive tackle, I believe from the Browns. He's a solid nose tackle. He's 31 years old. He's always been pretty solid, above average player. Once again, better than what they have. And they also signed Jacoby Brissett to be their backup quarterback. I like that move. Kyler Murray's been banged up the last few years. And Brissett's been a starter in the league. He's one of the better backups in the NFL. So if Murray goes out for a few weeks, they should be fine with Brissett. In the draft, they got more talented on defense. There's no doubt about it. It's young, but it's more talented. It's pretty obvious their offseason plan was to get better at corner and defensive line. In the first round, they drafted Walter Nolan, defensive tackle Ole Miss. He is now their most talented defensive lineman, hands down. He had some character concerns, more locker room. I don't think he's ever been arrested, anything like that I know of. The Cowboys almost took him 12th overall. So this is probably about where Walter Nolan would go. He might have gone the next pick to Cincinnati if he had been there. He's worth a shot. His film is incredible. If you're comfortable with the character, go for it. And the Cardinals will take chances. As you see by their next pick, they took Will Johnson, corner from Michigan. He probably would have gone mid-first round if he didn't have the injury issues. He's had a bunch of them, not just 1 or 2. And he didn't run the 40. I think that's the biggest issue why he fell. Not necessarily the injury. It's that some teams thought he was more of a 4.55, 4.6 guy, which is not good for a corner. Corner, you need him to be a 4.4 guy at least. Some teams want 4.3 in their corners. But he's an outstanding player at Michigan. Just watch the film. Great zone corner. So worth a shot in the middle of the second round. And Jordan Birch, edge rusher from Oregon. Really talented edge rusher. Probably should have gone around before this based on talent. He's not a finished product. So he can probably learn from Josh Sweat, maybe be his eventual replacement. And they also drafted Denzel Burke in the 5th round, another corner from Ohio State. If you just don't watch that first game against Oregon, you thought, oh, he's a day 2 pick, but he was terrible in that game. And that probably dropped him down, but he's got talent. So they added some defense in this draft, some defensive talent, and they had to because that was their biggest problem. They're important players. Kyler Murray, the quarterback. No one really talks about Murray, but I think he's a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. Not top 5, but top 10. James Conner, the running back. Another underrated player. No one talks about him. He's just been really good his whole career. Not elite, but really good. Trey McBride, the tight end, they extended. He's a top 5 tight end in the league. And their offensive line, it's not great, but they have 2 players that are really good. And Paris Johnson Jr., the left tackle, and I'm going to try to pronounce this correctly. Their center is very good too. His name is Yelda Froholt. I remember when he came out of Arkansas, I really wanted my Packers to draft him. I think New England drafted him. Somehow it didn't work out there, but he's one of the better centers in the NFL. On defense, Budda Baker, safety, just reliable. He's been good for a number of years. And 2 years ago, they drafted Garrett Williams out of Syracuse, slot corner, a pick I really liked. And he just had an outstanding year. He's become one of the better slot corners in the NFL. All right, so before we get to breakout player, I just want to say this. The Cardinals had to add talent on defense and depth. That was essential. The main reason the Cardinals have not made the playoffs since 2021 is the defense and the depth of the team when they have injuries. They actually won 4 games in 2022 and 2023. That's it. They were not a good team. And they actually doubled that. They won 8 games. I don't think people realize how improved they were. They doubled their win total. That's one of the reasons I really like them, because I think they're even better this year. Their roster's better. They're deeper. They added a bunch of defensive linemen in the draft and free agency. Same with cornerback, and those were 2 of their biggest issues. So they're young, but they're deep. And they added, obviously, Denzel Burke and Will Johnson, the corners this year. They added Max Melton from Rutgers last year. And the breakout players, I got 2 of them. First, let's talk about Darius Robinson. He was a defensive tackle / edge rusher from Missouri who had a monster Senior Bowl. It propelled him in the first round. I actually thought the Green Bay Packers were going to take him. They took Jordan Morgan, offensive tackle, Arizona instead in the first round last year. The reason I thought Packers would take him is they love guys that have elite Senior Bowls. But they went offensive line instead. And Arizona had 2 first-round picks. We'll talk about the other one in a second. And Darius Robinson was hurt most of the year. And when he did finally get on the field, he was not effective. He just didn't look right. He's really athletic for 295 pounds. I think he's going to be a really good interior rusher. You can put a defensive end on early downs, move him in interior on third downs. So I think he's going to break out in year 2. And we got to talk about Marvin Harrison Jr. He was a 4th overall pick last year. Like I said, they won 4 games, so they picked him in the top 5. Obviously, he's the son of Hall of Famer Marvin Harrison. And if you don't know about Marvin Harrison's lead up to the draft, he did not work out. He refused to do it. He said something like, don't quote me here, about focusing on receiver stuff and not on the workouts, the 3-cone, the 40, all that. You spend too much basically trying to improve those to help your draft stock. That's what players do. And he said he didn't want to do it. I think it's a total cop-out. What is he working on? He doesn't know the playbook. He just wasn't going to run well. Let's be honest. He is a big receiver. He's 6'4", 205, 210, something like that. I think he was going to run like a 4'6", and that's why he refused to work out. It didn't hurt him in the draft. I hate when a player doesn't work out. It drove me nuts. I want to know every drill from every player. I wish they were required to, unless they're injured. But you can't do that. It's their choice. But Marvin Harrison Jr., he had a solid rookie year. I don't think he necessarily had the great chemistry with Murray. I think they had a whole offseason, Murray and Harrison, to work on their chemistry. He's never going to be a deep threat, let's be honest. But there were plays at Ohio State where he was timed really fast, like on the field fast. He's not a track athlete. So that's why he didn't work out. But I don't think he's slow. So I expect him to really break out this year. He and Robinson. And because of that, I'm looking at this roster, and it's a good roster. It's not Detroit or Philadelphia, okay? It's not. Let's be honest. But I really like this Arizona Cardinals team. I like this roster. I think they're at least a 10-win team, and I think they could win more than that. And I think they're going to make the playoffs, especially if Kyler Murray stays healthy. More on that when we do division previews right before the season starts. So do you agree with me? Do you think the Cardinals are the team that's going to take that jump and make the playoffs? Comment down below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Really helps out the channel. Share this with anyone who loves football as we continue to grow football with cheese. Check these videos if you have not, and I will see you in the next one.